What are you smiling about?
Dude, I almost had you.
Home sweet home.
I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world I'm coming home. Let the rain wash away all the pain of yesterday. I know my kingdom awaits, and they've forgiven my mistakes. I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world that I'm coming home. Let the rain wash away all the pain of yesterday. I know my kingdom awaits, and they've forgiven my mistakes. I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world that I'm coming.
The most important thing in life will always be the people in this room. Right here. Right now. Salute me, familia.
I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world I'm coming home. I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world I'm coming.
Drop. Too fast. Drop. Too furious. I'm too fast for y'all, man. Drop. Too fast. Drop. Too furious. Oh, I'm too fast for y'all. Oh, you just came home from doing a bid. Tell me what you gon' do. Act a fool. Somebody broke in and cleaned out your crib. Boy, what you gon' do? Act a fool.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Stay Tuned. I am one half of the show. My name's Tim, and to my internet left, I'll let this guy introduce himself once again.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Tom.
All right. Hey, Tom, how's your week been, man?
Oh, it's pretty good. A little sad. One of my friends, left me at work. Not coming back anymore. Kind of a dick. So, but I was able to power through. So it's been a pretty good week.
I'm sorry I left you, Tom. That was me that left him, so I do apologize for that, you guys. So, other than that, how's your week been, man?
Yeah, it's been really good. As we're going to talk about Fast and Furious, I have rewatched all of the Fast and Furious movies and
So have
saw the newest one yesterday, much like yourself. So it's been a fun week, to say the least.
Yep. So we won't give anything away yet, but we did have something left over from last week. Pretty much WrestleMania 31.
Yeah, that happened too. Holy cow!
Yeah, I know it's been a crazy week, right?
Seems like so long ago.
Yeah. So WrestleMania 31. We'll just go through the card really quick. The pre-show was the tag team titles, and Cesaro and Kid sustained the titles or kept the titles, whatever you want to say. Retained. There it was. I couldn't remember the word.
Yes.
Retained the
Very
titles.
good.
And I think both of us are very happy about that. Would you agree?
Yeah, they're the best.
Yep.
They're so good. They're great performers in ring, and they are awesome promo-wise. So I love those guys.
BK Fries.
Yes, BK
Then
Fries are
we
back.
had the Andre the Giant Battle Royale, which the winner was the Big Show. And I was kind of mad about this at first, but it's starting to make sense. I mean, like, the Big Show's been there for so long. His accomplishments aren't amazing for his time, but he
kinda
pretty much
sucks.
he pretty much is like the Andre the Giant of today. But I feel like it'd be more meaningful if you didn't have, like, Kane and the Undertaker and all these other big guys now. But
Yeah.
I think we both are in agreement that we both would have rather seen Damian Sandow.
Yes, Mizdow.
Yes.
He had a great showing. I'm glad they gave him a good showing.
Yeah.
But it also wouldn't have made sense for him to have thrown Big Show out by himself.
Yeah. So I was
I
hoping.
kind of was hoping those two would team up, Miz and Mizdow,
Yeah.
and then he kicks the
Yep.
Miz out of the ring. But Mizdow looked great, so I'm very happy about that.
And then we move on to actual WrestleMania outside the pre-show. The first match was the Intercontinental Ladder match,
Yes.
and I wanted Dean Ambrose to win, but I mean, I'm very much okay with Daniel Bryan. I know you were very excited whenever he won.
Yes, I was so excited.
And
I said yes.
I think it's great. I think it's going to help legitimize the Intercontinental title once again. And yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
D-Bry's great. D-Bry's great. Like everybody loves him because he looks like a normal human being.
He does.
Which is also why I like Dean Ambrose, even though he's tall and muscular and all that, and looks kind of, not so normal. But Daniel Bryan is awesome. He needs to have a championship, and if they're gonna try and legitimize that title, who better than to put everybody's, pretty much the consensus, everybody's favorite wrestler. So I was very happy with that. Plus, the rumor is that Dean Ambrose is gonna have a huge push going into SummerSlam and all that, which makes sense given the end of WrestleMania. So, hey, if he gets up there too, that's totally fine with me.
Then what was the next match? I can't even remember now. God, it's been like a week.
Was it Randy and Seth?
Yeah, Randy and Seth, which was probably the second best RKO I've ever seen. Only second to the
Evan Bourne.
The Evan Bourne from Monday Night Raw. That thing it looked so good. Like Randy Orton was laying like at that 45-degree angle. He goes to do the airborne. I thought that's what it was called. And it just
airborne.
Then he just like does like this thing where he just kind of like pushes himself up off the mat and like cocks back to that straight angle and just lands the RKO, and it was like, what just happened? Like, that was the most amazing thing ever. But the Seth Rollins going to give him the curb stomp. The dude, it looked like, from the angle the first angle, it looked like he flew like 25 feet in the air. It was maybe it
looked crazy.
It was maybe like 6 or 7 feet, but it looked awesome. Like, it was just like, whoa. And then he RKO'd him and won. I was like, that's great. Then I believe the next one was Sting and Triple H. And
yes, that is correct.
I would have rather this been like, instead of like a no disqualification match, like just had it been like Sting versus Triple H. I understand Sledgehammer versus Bat, they're big things they're known for, but then having like DX come out, which was like Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, and X-Pac at first, and then like NWO, old ass Kevin Nash, old ass Scott Hall, old ass Hulk Hogan.
Yeah,
like it was just like really. Then Shawn Michaels comes in and gives a super kick. I mean, Triple H wins. And it made sense when we talked about it as it was going on. Like, we both said Sting, 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 because, Triple H is the best jobber of WrestleMania. But, WWF beating WCW, like, we're like, okay, that makes sense. That's cool.
Yeah, that's the only way that match makes sense, because leading up to it, there's no way in hell Sting loses, which we talked about. But, yeah, if you think about it as, well, WWE beat the, WCW, it makes sense. But, like, I thought this was cool because, it had all the old guys. But, again, this was all old guys. Like, there was not very much athleticism in this match.
No, not at all.
It was very old school, very slow, very brawly, which is fine because it was just cool to see Sting in the ring. But, like, good God, everybody's just so old. But I remember the whole time I'm like, where is Shawn Michaels? Where's Shawn Michaels? And you're like, oh, they're just doing, I guess old DX when it was just Triple H. But then he showed up for
that was more the Attitude Era DX that I remember, was just Triple H, X-Pac, Badass, Road Dogg, and then you had like Chyna. But yeah,
right, So, but then the Sweet Chin Music out of nowhere, and that was really cool. And the Terminator entrance was pretty cool, even though it didn't really make sense because it seemed like he was a Terminator, but then he also was holding Terminator heads.
Yeah,
so that's kind of confusing. But
it was weird, but it looked cool.
It was still cool. Yep.
Then the Divas match, which was AJ Lee and Paige. Tag teaming against the Bella Twins, but there was no title on the line, which was kind of weird for WrestleMania. It was the only title for the pre-show and the actual pay-per-view that the title was not on the line. I know the title was on the line on Monday Night Raw, but the
week before,
but it was just that was a good match
and that was
too.
An awesome match, They did a great job on that one. So I was kind of disappointed it wasn't Paige versus Nikki.
Yeah. Which I think would have been better than maybe have AJ in Paige's corner and, Brie, like always, in Nikki's corner. But the match was good. Yep. Paige and AJ won like we both said they would. But then, coming out of nowhere yesterday, I read this, and then literally like 15 minutes after I read it, you sent me the text that AJ Lee retired. And it's
Yeah, that was
like,
kinda crazy.
She just came back. I know there's like she's married to CM Punk. There's all this like friction and tension between CM Punk and the WWE after he left.
Right.
So
yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure how it was for her backstage so much, but it was just like, man, you just had like a really good match, and I feel like she was the next to get pushed again. To be she was a 3-time Divas champion. Easily was going to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
right,
however many
which
times.
4 would have set the record
Yeah.
for Divas champion.
'Cause she is-
and she would deserve it. She's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I think
But-
Paige has had it twice already, so I know Paige is going to break
Yeah,
that record.
Paige is going to
eventually.
set it because
Yeah.
Paige is the best.
Yeah.
Paige is absolutely the best.
But yeah, so AJ Lee retired, so that's just kind of weird. Like, she was like one of the best divas
yeah.
on the roster. But anyways, so then we had the United States Championship match, which was John Cena versus Rusev, and this
Yes.
fight was pretty damn good once again. John
Yeah.
Cena did topple Rusev, and it didn't look crappy. It looked really good. Lana
Rusev came out in a tank.
Yes, his entrance was great, but it was so weird to
Yes.
see
Oh
John
God, it was
Cena.
so cool.
John Cena just to have a no entrance, just like it's just the typical John Cena entrance. It was like
Rapadoo.
that's weird. Like, yeah, that
And
was
to hear the
just-
crowd just scream at the top of their lungs,
Yeah.
John Cena sucks. That was great.
yes. And then the fight was actually good.
Yep.
Lana pretty much got up on the rope. She threw one of her high heels at John Cena whenever
Yeah,
he
we
had
were like,
the,
what the hell was
SCF.
that?
It's like, is that considered a disqualification if it hits him or what? Like, how does that work? But then she got up on the ropes and like Rusev
Got
I think
smacked off.
Yeah, I think Cena pushed Rusev into her. I can't remember exactly
Yep.
because it was happening.
Yeah,
so
Rusev
fast.
knocked her off.
And then Rusev knocked her off, and then John Cena hit him with the AA real quick, pinned him 1, 2, 3. He walked out the champion. So once again, just adding more legitimacy to the undercard titles rather than the main event. And then we had the Undertaker Wyatt fight, and
No, don't skip the world's longest promo.
oh
The
god,
Rock
oh
versus-
yes,
The Rock
yes,
and
yes.
Ronda Rousey.
The
versus
Rock and
the
Ronda
Authority.
Rousey versus the Authority. So the Authority come out there, and they start off their typical thing, saying pretty much, hey, we have 93,600
record.
and whatever it was, record attendance for this stadium.
The
Congratulations.
stadium that's been open for a year.
Yeah, and it's like, congratulations, and then they just became total dickheads. And then The Rock came out, and it was like,
Right.
my first thought was, I think I looked at you, I was like, is he here to promote Furious 7? Is that
Yes,
what's going
and then,
on?
And then he got Ronda Rousey, so
Yes.
yeah, kind of.
But I did not know that Ronda Rousey was actually in Furious 7 until I saw the movie.
Right.
But,
I only knew
don't
she
even-
had a small part.
I didn't even know that. I don't watch UFC. I don't follow UFC, so I don't even know who Ronda Rousey was until she gets
Yeah.
in there and she's wearing like a Dragon Ball Z shirt, and I'm like, oh, all the geeks are on Nerd Out. I don't like Dragon Ball Z. I'm sorry. I'm one of
I
those
like
guys.
it. It's weed.
I don't have any. It's great if you do. That's cool. But no, she got in there and it looked so weird, and Stephanie McMahon is just not good at acting at all. So it just
She's great as like a heel, but yeah, if she ever tried to actually
Yeah.
be an actress, it'd be horrible.
it didn't look good. The thing between Rock and Triple H was good, but the whole Stephanie McMahon versus Ronda Rousey, it's like Ronda Rousey could hit you twice and you would just fall over and just be knocked
She'd be
unconscious
dead.
probably. Yeah.
She'd be dead.
So I didn't
I mean,
like,
she won her last fight, her championship match in 13 seconds. Like, she's an absolute beast.
so I did not like that promo, but it was really
It was
long.
just too long. It was
Yeah.
just too freaking long. It was
'Cause,
so
like,
long.
The Rock gets out of the ring and he's standing there for like 30 seconds. Then he goes over to Ronda Rousey and looks at her
Right.
and looks back at them, then looks at her, then looks back at them. It was like,
Right.
just do
Yeah, it
something,
was
like,
so crazy long.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
it was
Rock
okay.
and Ronda Rousey knock out Triple H and Stephanie McMahon out of the ring, whatever.
yep.
Then we had the Undertaker Wyatt fight, and
Yes.
I thought the Undertaker started off so strong. He looked so good compared to last year.
Oh
and I felt
God,
like
yeah. He looked like
he
looked
did-
like an actual wrestler
Yeah.
instead of just an old man.
He did old school. He did all his great
Yes.
stuff, and it felt like I'm not sure if you felt like this way, but I felt like he kind of went downhill as the fight went on.
Yeah,
'cause he was
yeah. I
getting
mean, he
tired,
started
he's
off
old.
super strong.
Yeah.
I mean, he hadn't wrestled in a year either,
Yeah, that's
so
true.
you know, he started off super strong. Yeah, exactly, with old school. I remember when he went up on the ropes, we were both kind of like, "Holy crap, is he actually going to hit old school?" Like last year, he could barely do anything,
Yeah.
and this, you know, now he's hitting old school. So, yeah, it was good to see him, you know, back in action and actually looking really good. I think part of that had to do with the singlet he wore last year looked really stupid with his like pizza shaped mohawk
Yeah.
thingy. So I think he looked great this year, so I was happy.
And Wyatt lost to the Undertaker, so the 22-1 streak
Yeah.
is still in play. Or I guess the
And whoever
22-1.
that jackass was with the 23-0 sign.
That was so
What
stupid.
the
That was so
hell?
stupid.
Get out of here.
Then we get to the main event: Roman Reigns versus
Yeah.
Brock Lesnar, and all I could say is Suplex City, bitch, was great.
Right, yeah.
Just
Suplex City, bitch.
I don't
like,
think
he
that
said
was.
it
I don't think
so
that
loud.
was even planned. Like the camera was
No.
just like really close, and he's like, "Welcome to Suplex City, bitch," and it was like, holy crap! At least he acknowledges he does a lot of suplexes, because it was
Right.
What did we counted?
You
I think he did.
You don't like Brock Lesnar.
I don't.
Come on.
No.
He's the best.
But then there was the what was it? He did like 10 suplexes total. I think we were counting them as
Yeah.
he went.
Yeah,
And
he
then
did
it
10.
was 3
4
F5s.
F5.
He did 3
4.
at first. Then he pinned him,
That's great.
and he kicked out.
Okay.
And then I think you said something like that just completely illegitimizes the Undertaker. It shows that Roman Reigns is stronger than the Undertaker. Which
Yeah.
I could see that, but I also disagree because Roman Reigns is younger.
Right.
and
No, it's not
stronger.
that it doesn't legitimize it. It's just that it's showing like, wow, like they made a point of like, hey, he took 3 also, and
Yeah,
they were in a
that's true,
quicker
yeah.
succession, and he was able to kick out. So
Yeah.
it made Roman Reigns look really strong because yes, the Undertaker is an old man. So
And then whenever he was Brock Lesnar was bleeding within like 3 minutes of the fight.
yeah,
Then what was it? He threw him into the turnbuckle outside the ring, and dude,
Yep.
it was like you said,
It
what
was
was it
like-
Stone Cold WrestleMania
Yeah,
17, I
13.
think 13.
13.
Just like
yeah,
that
Bret
blood
Hart.
just dripping down his face as he has the
He looked
sharpshooter on.
awesome.
And then out of nowhere, I think it was what was it? He hit him with the spear or the Superman punch, and they both went down. And then
Yep,
all of a
Superman
sudden, Seth Rollins
He hit him
comes
with like
out.
3 Superman punches.
Yeah, he hit him once. He stumbled.
It took
didn't
him a
fall
lot,
down,
yeah.
Hit him twice. So it was kind of like the 3 AAs from Royal Rumble, to where
Exactly,
till he
yep.
finally stayed down, which I think
Yep.
that legitimizes the beast that is Brock Lesnar. Makes him actually
Oh, yeah.
a beast, even though he lost.
For
But
sure.
He didn't really lose in my book, but
No,
then
He
Seth
never got
Rollins.
pinned.
Seth Rollins came out, and me and you looked at each other, and we were just like, "Is this
We
really about
got
to
so
happen?"
hyped.
He hit. What was he hit
We were so
Lesnar
loud.
with a curb stomp,
Yep.
and then he hit Reigns with, or then Reigns was out of the ring, and Lesnar went to get back up, and then he went to do it again. I can't remember exactly what happened, but then he got him up there to do the F5, and then Roman Reigns speared him, and then he falls down to his knees, and Lesnar rolls out of the ring, and then Rollins is fresh standing, hits him with the curb stomp, pins him for the 1, 2, 3, and it was just
was-
like.
It was
I
so
felt like a
good.
kid in a candy store. I was like, "Oh my god, did we really just
Yes.
see that? Did
It was
Rollins
such
just
a
walk
great-
out?"
It was such a great ending. It made everybody look great. Like
Mm-hmm.
Seth Rollins looks like a complete shit heel, like
Yeah.
he's supposed to be. Like, hey, I'm just gonna come in and take advantage of this. But he ended up winning. Lesnar still looks like a badass because like he was bleeding the whole time and he,
Yeah.
was dominating Roman Reigns. But then Roman Reigns looked strong because he took all the punishment and was still able
Yep.
to keep going. So and Brock Lesnar never got pinned. So
Yep. So everybody walks out good.
So everybody looked good, and of course Seth Rollins, he runs back, he runs down to the ring super fast, gets a title, runs
flinging
back,
flinging the
super
title
fast,
around.
like
But no, Rollins reminds
So
me of
good.
Edge, which makes me really like him because I love Edge. Edge is like my favorite wrestler of all time. So
yeah,
Yeah.
Rollins is clearly the future. So I am excited that they
Yep.
gave him the title.
all right, so sorry we did not recap that for you guys, but there was a quick 15-ish minute recap.
Yes.
WrestleMania 31. It's definitely in my top 5 WrestleManias of all time. What about you? Did you like it enough or not?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I think it might be due to it being low expectations and all that, but I really liked it. So, what about yourself?
I loved it, every minute
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
Minus maybe like a
The
couple
segment
a
with The
couple-
Rock.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
Speaking of The Rock is in a movie that just came out this week, Furious 7. But before we get to
Yes.
Furious 7, we're gonna go ahead and recap pretty much almost the entire franchise. I mean, I'm pretty sure almost everybody's seen these movies, so we're not going to go into too much detail, but we're just going to recap and tell our thoughts on the actual movies. So, of course, the first one is The Fast and the Furious. It came out in 2001. I remember seeing this at the drive-in theater with my friend Dusty, and I went to see it just because it looked like a cool movie, and he really wanted to see it because Ja Rule was in it.
Is that for real? Why you wanted to see that?
No, I mean he was always
Oh,
talking
good.
about like he's like, oh
Ja
dude,
Rule.
Ja Rule's in this. It's gonna be great, and I'm just like, I don't care. I don't like Ja Rule, but whatever.
Right.
I'll go see
Who
it.
does like Ja Rule?
But like drive-in movie theaters are pretty much like a thing of the past at this point. But
yeah,
because
pretty much.
kids aren't gonna see these anymore. But so you want to run us through the pretty much the story of the first Fast and the Furious?
Yeah, sure. So they're bad guys with cars, led by Vin Diesel's character Dominic Toretto and his friends that I really don't care about because they don't really matter all that much. And then there are good guys with cars, aka Paul Walker, who's playing Brian O'Connor, who's a police officer who's trying to figure out who's stealing a bunch of like electronics equipment, like a bunch of speakers and computers and all that kind of stuff. So Brian ends up getting in with the group and all this, does his undercover cop thing, and then pretty much he has the chance to turn in Vin Diesel's character Dom at the end of the movie, but he decides not to, and he lets him get away because of the friendship that they formed, the respect that they have for each other. So it's pretty simplistic. Like the series kind of becomes crazier and crazier in terms of story, but the first one is very simple. It's all about the cars. It's all about the racing. They spend a lot of time talking about cars and a lot of time racing as opposed to like Furious 7. So
Yeah.
pretty easy. Undercover cop. He ends up not turning in the bad guy.
Yeah, so you mentioned the cars. So the cars are what I really like about these movies, like especially the old ones, not so much the new ones, because the new ones it's like here's a black Charger, here's a black Challenger, here's a black muscle car. The old one, I mean, like you
Right.
see like Dom's car that he starts off with is a Mazda RX-7. RX-7s are beautiful. They're great. They have like that nice turbine engine. I'm not going to get too much into it, but then Brian O'Connor's
Have
first
four
car.
wheels.
Yeah, Brian. Sorry, when his name was Brian, was it Spielner or Spielman, something like
That's the-
that? Was
Oh,
his,
when
like,
he's
he's
undercover
name.
or something? Yeah, something like that.
But his car was, when he starts off, was a Mitsubishi Eclipse. I believe it was like a 96, 97. Then he ends up losing, so he puts his car on the line to race Dom and the other racers or whatever, which was Ja Rule and some Asian guy. I never did know the Asian guy's name. I don't think he ever said it either.
Probably not.
Then he loses that car because the Chinese triad gang or whatever like shoots it up and makes it explode. Then he gets a Toyota Supra and they build it from like the ground up. And then you typically had like your typical Honda Civic, that all black with like the spoilers, low ride. They can go into the semis. That was the cars they used to steal the electronics and stuff from the
Right.
trailers.
Yep.
So
From the trailer.
yeah, but the first movie, what was your first thoughts the first time that you saw it? I guess like I saw it in theaters. I was like, that was a pretty damn good movie. But I also did not watch Gone in 60 Seconds from like the 60s and 70s. So this was like my first. This was like my first
Right.
like actual car. I don't want to say car centric, but like centered a lot around cars for a movie. I loved it.
Yeah, so I actually didn't see this movie until maybe like 4 years later or so. So when I saw it, I mean, I liked it. It's not the world's greatest movie, but it's a good kind of turn off your brain and enjoy the ride movie.
Yeah. Pun intended.
I will never say that Paul Walker. Oh gosh, yeah,
Enjoy the ride.
I'm the best. Anyway, I will never say that Paul Walker is a good actor. Like he gets a lot better as the series goes on,
Yeah,
and
he
he has
does.
more acting time. But God, that first movie, he's real bad.
I don't think
But
Paul Walker was
he's one of my
anybody,
favorites though because I
really.
love these. Yeah, I think this might have been one of his first movies.
Yeah.
Definitely his biggest one.
Like none of these,
But,
none of them were really that big of actors at the time. I mean, like Vin Diesel, like he had like Pitch Black.
Yeah.
Not even Chronicles of Riddick at the time was out, so this was kind of
no,
like his.
not even Chronicles.
Like I don't think he was expected to be in the series for very long.
Yeah, I mean he wasn't.
He wasn't
I
in
mean,
2
nobody,
or 3, so
Yeah, he wasn't.
well,
He was in 3 very very briefly.
but yeah, he wasn't really in the movie, is what I'm thinking. That's my thought process, pretty much. So, but
yeah, I mean, looking on here, he was in in Saving Private Ryan for a little bit, but
Yeah.
he was really
like,
in.
what was it like 10
He
minutes?
was in
10 minute
Pitch Black.
segment?
Yeah, and he was in Pitch Black, which is an awesome movie. I love those movies, and I know you do too. But this is really his first big big movie. So yeah, it was kind of cool because you could just focus on the cars and all that, and they spent a lot of time on it. But I guess Ja Rule would probably be the biggest star in this movie, like at the time, which is hilarious to think about.
He was a big rapper at the time, like 2001.
Yeah.
I think he was like huge in like the late 90s and the early 2000s. So
Yeah, like I haven't thought about Ja Rule in years, so like his name has never even crossed my mind. So yeah. So I really like this movie, but it's pretty hokey.
Yeah.
Although it's kind of a common theme, despite
Yeah.
how much I love these.
But I feel
movies.
like this is what starts like the Dom character, is who I love so
Yeah.
much. I love
Yep.
I love the character Dominic Toretto, because I feel like it actually is kind of Vin Diesel playing himself in
Right.
in this situations. But so then I think it was 2 years later, 2003, we got Too Fast and Too
Too
Furious.
It was too fast for y'all.
Yeah, so this is the one where Dominic Toretto's pretty much out. Brian is living in Miami, like
Yep.
on a little boat, and he has one of the sexiest cars of the time, a Nissan GTR Skyline. And yeah, so the movie opens up, and you have like 3 racers, and they're like, "Oh, where's our 4th racer at, man?" He's like, "He has to work the graveyard shift. He ain't gonna be here." And then they're like, he's like,
Graveyard
and then
shift.
like Ludacris is like, "Well, y'all ain't racing without a 4th," and they're like. He's like, "You need a 4th," and they're like, "We don't have anybody." He's like, "I can get you somebody. Can I pick whoever I want?" They're like, "Yeah, pick whoever." And then he calls Brian, and then you
Right.
see him driving there in the
Yep.
Skyline, and it's like, oh, that car is so sexy. Because that was also like the time whenever like Need for Speed Underground was like coming up as well. So
Yep.
those were cars that were in those games as well. So you really got to play with them, not just like see them on the screen, which was cool. But then he shows up and smokes them all in the race. It has like one of the coolest bridge jump scenes ever, where he just like flies over another car.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet.
And then ends up winning. But then it actually gets to the story, and like he is no longer a cop, but then he sees like his old sergeant or lieutenant, his old commander, whatever, from the first movie, and he's pretty
Yeah.
much like, "Hey, there's this guy that has like drugs and stuff, and we need you to catch him." It's pretty basic.
Yep.
And he's like, "But you're gonna need help." And then he like quizzes
Yes.
this one guy or whatever, and the guy's like, he's like, you're not gonna cut it in the street racing world. He's like, "I need to have my guy," and he gets, of all people, Tyrese as
Yeah.
his partner.
Oh God, Roman Pierce.
But Roman
So
Pierce
good.
is probably my second favorite character next to Dom in the entire series. I'm just saying.
Oh,
right now,
he's so good. Like this movie, I don't think this movie's all that great. Like I think it's probably the second weakest one.
Yeah.
But the fact that it introduced Roman Pierce into everything makes it, all worthwhile, because he's, until they really get into like him with Ludacris in the later movies, he gets much, much funnier, but he's still funny in this one. And, he's got a good attitude, like where where they go and they go break into what they think is like a impound or whatever. And then there's the like Ferrari or whatever car it is, and
the cigar
to
in
try
it.
and get inside, he takes his shirt off, wraps it around his fist, and punches through the window.
And then Brian just
Paul
opens the door.
Walker's, yeah, he just opens the door and he goes, "Oh," and he's just a really fun character. Like,
And
you can tell that he's really enjoying himself. So the fact that it introduces him is its saving grace.
So I think it's hilarious that he plays like such a stereotypical black male, which is funny because he's just like, whenever there's food, he's like, "You gonna eat that?" Like, it sounds like he's always in prison, not just even a black guy, but just like a stereotypical prison guy. Like, he's like, "Yeah, that's my food." He's like, "I'm hungry. I don't care."
Well, yeah, and they talk about it. And he's like, "I'm trying to enjoy the food now, because if I have to go back to prison, I know how shitty it is."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So the story's pretty crappy again, but these movies are not meant about the story. It's just about being along for like
Yep.
the ride. So they're undercover, infiltrating like this, drug smuggler, and then there's like another undercover cop that got them to be undercover with him, and it's all really weird. And then they end up having help from like Ludacris and all the other racers in the street world to like throw the cops off their trail. And then like it's one of those like bell curve at the end where like there's like the double cross and all this crazy stuff,
Right.
whatever. But yeah, I mean, overall this movie, like you said, it's probably my second or third least favorite,
Right.
but I still really do enjoy it. Like,
Yeah, it's still fun. Like all the movies
Mm-hmm.
except for one of them, I think are like
Yeah.
no matter what, they're enjoyable to
Yeah.
a certain extent. This one, you might have to take a couple more liberties, like with the story and all that. But I still think that this is a pretty great movie.
I think this has the second best lineup of cars personally, though, because like I said before, it has the Nissan GTR Skyline, which is just a really sexy car all around. Like, it's really powerful.
You really like this car.
I do, but there's only one other car more than I like than that. You had the Roman Pierce convertible, which was the Mitsubishi Eclipse Spider. Not really a big fan of the Eclipse. Then you had the Mitsubishi Evolution 7, which is probably my third favorite car in this series, only to the GTR Skyline, and then probably my favorite car, which is in Tokyo Drift. And then you had the muscle car, the Camaro and the Challenger. Those cars were, for American-made muscle,
they looked awesome.
they were, it was, what was it, the Camaro was blue and white with the stripes, and I believe the Challenger was I think it was orange.
It was orange, yeah.
Like, that is like the stereotype, typical Camaro Challenger of like the late 60s, early 70s, and they looked perfect. Like, they were like fresh off the line getting made. They looked great.
Yeah.
I loved those cars. But yeah, this movie, it's not so great story-wise, but it definitely does have better cars than the first movie. And like you said, it takes a lot more liberties. But Vin Diesel's not in it, which is kind of a drag. But you do get Roman Pierce and you get Tej.
Yeah.
Tej is played by Ludacris, and he's pretty much like the tech guy. And he has like the
great.
weirdest outfit ever. Like, he has a fro that would take up like my whole entire box here. And then like his like huge
dude, his fro is ridiculous in that
ridiculously huge mechanic suit. So
you could put like 8 Ludacris's in there.
Yes. So with Ludacris and Tyrese, like they were getting a lot more mainstream stars. Paul Walker stays. But yeah. Any last words on Too Fast, Too Furious?
Nope. Let's get to a really good movie.
So a really good one. This is probably my second favorite in the series, Tokyo Drift. This one came out in 2006, and I actually have a funny story about this one. 2006, I think it was June. So it came out in DVD before October, so like September-ish. And when I was at advanced training for the Army, I was in like this thing called Phase 5 Plus, where I could pretty much have like free reign after business hours. But I bought this movie like the week it came out, because I had to do like Fire Guard, which is pretty much I stay up all night and do nothing but like watch TV and make sure that the building doesn't burn down, and make sure people aren't sneaking out.
Right.
But I bought this movie and I watched it. Like that night, me and my Fire Guard guy or whatever, I was like, oh, that was actually, that was a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. The cars were great. The movie was great. And then like the next morning, I'm gathering up all my stuff to go to my room and go to sleep. And the guy's like, hey, is that the new Fast and the Furious? I'm like, yeah, it's Tokyo Drift. He's like, can I borrow that and watch it? I was like, yeah, dude, go ahead. I don't care. I already watched it. I'll pick it up later. And I think that weekend that I bought that movie, I think it got watched like 15 or 20 times. Like, I am
That's
not
awesome.
even joking. Like, every time I went past the common room, is what it was called, where we sat at, it was always on. Like, no other movie was getting played. I'm pretty sure one of the guys watched it like 4 times. Like, I'm not even kidding. It was that bad. It's
Just
a good
keep
movie.
rewatching and
it's
rewatching.
a good movie. I would not say don't watch it like 5 or 6 times in a row. But
No.
It's a great movie. But so anyways, you want to go over the story of this one that actually kind of makes more. I think it makes more sense. Although the characters don't really fill their roles because they're too old. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, so
That's Hollywood.
So in the movie, Sean is the main character. So he's played by Lucas Black, guy who was in Friday Night Lights and this, and then pretty much nothing else.
he was in Furious 7.
True, he was in Furious 7 briefly. But yeah, so this movie's about him because he's in high school. He gets in trouble a lot, you find out. So he lives with his mom because it turns out his dad is a U.S. Navy officer living in Tokyo. So he gets in trouble racing through this subdivision area, which was actually a really cool race.
That was a great opening scene. That's probably the best opening race scene of any of the movies, I think. Sorry,
yeah, definitely. It was awesome because they're going through these houses that aren't finished and they're blowing stuff up and all that kind of stuff. So so he gets in trouble and is sent to Japan, where he's obviously the outsider, being the white guy
the
in
gaijin.
The gaijin in Tokyo, where he meets Twinkie, who's played by Bow Wow, who in a really bizarre casting choice. I guess Bow Wow was big at the time. I can't remember.
He was.
But,
he was huge. He was actually huge back then. That's Master P's son from No Limit Records.
No, Master P's son is Lil Romeo.
Oh, is
Come
it really?
on.
I don't know
yes,
this stuff. I'm just
Lil
guessing.
Romeo. I only know that because he had like a Nickelodeon show. Anyway, Bow Wow's in the movie. Who he's like, he befriends him and kind of introduces him to all the to the racing scene there because Sean loves racing, and Sean kind of takes on these racers, and he has no idea what he's in for because
And
he doesn't
has
understand
no car either,
drifting.
which is even
Yeah, he has
funnier.
no car. So one of the guys, Han, who ends up being a huge character and one of my favorite characters in the series, it turns out he gives him the keys to a car and says, "Hey, yeah, you can race using my car," and he just gets obliterated. He loses to DK, the Drift King, which is
But it's
really
funny
stupid.
because he taunts him the whole entire time. Like
He does.
he hands him
does.
the keys to a Nissan Silvia, which is it was called like what they call it, the Mona Lisa. Like that's what Bow Wow's
Yeah.
character called it. He was like, "This is like the Mona." He's like, "What?" He says like, "You know that one really famous picture with the lady that's always smiling?" He's like, "The Mona Lisa." I'm like, I would not have guessed the Mona Lisa if somebody said the famous painting with the girl always smiling. I'd say the eyes that follow you. I'd say, "Oh, that's the Mona Lisa. I know what you're talking about." But he's like,
Yes.
"Yeah, that car." He's like, "That painting. This is the Mona Lisa of the drift world." But
Right.
I knew what drifting was back then because of a Japanese anime and manga called Initial D, which is pretty much just like,
Nerd.
which is pretty much just like a racing thing.
Yeah.
So
It's
like
anime.
yeah.
Nerd.
so you have the 350Z, which is the car that DK was driving, the Drift King.
Yep.
Did they ever say his actual name?
No, I think his name in the movie is DK.
You know what DK stands for? Donkey Kong.
Right. Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong.
But yeah,
yeah,
then he's-
Sean has like the best Southern accent ever.
But it's so like I think it feels forced sometimes. But anyways,
I think that's his voice though, which is really
know.
weird.
no,
It
but-
sounds like a super fake Southern accent.
yeah. So
But
he
yeah.
he races with the Mona Lisa of the drift world and completely
And
destroys it.
Freaking
And like
destroys
you
that
just, like,
thing.
see-
It's shredded.
was that Han's like eating like peanuts and like he watches his car getting obliterated.
Yeah,
he just looks
he's like,
he just
"Ugh."
looks like you just like took the kid's dog and like kicked it across the street and he's just like, oh. I look, he's
Yeah.
like so sad, and like everybody's getting on the elevator going up, and you see like Bow Wow with like all these chicks, and you see Han just get on the elevator by himself, just like, I'm so sad. I don't know what to do with
But
myself.
yeah.
I'm so sad.
Yeah, but then so Han, to like have him repay him for
Yeah, he pretty much
destroying
employs
his
him.
car, he employs him and ends up teaching him how to drift and all that. And
Yeah.
so Sean falls in love with DK's girlfriend, and then it turns out DK's uncle is part of the Yakuza, so he's a real bad dude. So the Yakuza kind of goes after Han, and then they end up trying to settle it using a race down this famous mountain with all the drifting, and Sean ends up winning. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much it. And then at the end, they go, they're talking about Han because Han ends up getting killed in this, right?
Yeah, he gets hit. He's like,
Yeah, Sean.
they're running.
Yeah, Han gets killed.
They're running, and he gets hit by what seems to be just a random car, and then the
Yep.
car gets flipped and catches on fire and explodes.
Yep.
And then at the end of the movie, they're sitting there like, Sean and
Sean's the new DK.
yeah, he wants.
New
I
Drift
can't remember the
King.
girl's name. He's sitting there talking to her, and like Bow Wow comes up. He's like, "Hey, there's a guy in town wants to race a new DK," and he's like, "Nah, I ain't racing tonight." And he's like, he says he knew Han. Han was family, and it's just like, oh. And then like you see him pull up in his new car. I can't remember what car he was driving at the time. And then there's Vin Diesel to the left, and it's like,
Yep.
holy crap, what's he doing here? And it's like Han was family, and you never seen any like reference of Vin Diesel and Han together ever at this
Yep.
point. So that was like, oh crap, another one's coming. But so
Yeah.
the Nissan Silvia was in this. You mentioned the Dodge Viper, the 350Z, which is what DK's car was. Han drove an RX-7 that was, I think it was black and orange. That thing was just tight and sexy looking. But then my favorite car in the entire franchise and series,
You really like cars.
I do. I like tuner cars. My favorite car in the entire series, the Evo 9. Now, this is not a traditional Evo 9 because Evo 9s are all-wheel drive. They typically come out of the factory. I think it's 320 horsepower, so this one was definitely tuned differently. And they actually had a different drive shaft, drivetrain to where this was not all-wheel drive, it was only rear-wheel drive, because all-wheel drive cars cannot drift because all the tires are always spinning whenever you hit the gas, whereas like if it's rear-wheel drive, only the back tires spin whenever you hit the gas, and the front tires just pretty much like follow along and like guide the back tires, whereas front-wheel drive, like the front tires pull the back tires and the back tires just try and keep in line or whatever. So they had to modify it, and actually the the actual Japanese drift king, who is actually, he was a fisherman in the movie. He was one of the
Really?
two fishermen. Yeah, he's one of the two fishermen. He was
Huh.
actually drifting down the mountain. Like, he was doing those scenes down the mountain, and they had to keep telling him that he looked too clean and too good to be doing it, and he had to keep redoing it. I think they said he shot like 30 or 40 times till he figured out how to drive sloppy again, because he'd been doing this for
That's
years.
awesome.
So drifting is not it was not a huge thing in the U.S. at the time. Maybe like right before the movie came out, and of course afterwards. Like it's still, drifting is still more of an underground thing. It was mainstream for a while. Now it's back to where it used to be.
Right. Yep.
Just a little bit more popular and more known. But what was I going? Oh yeah, but this has been in Japan for years. Like, this is how they used to get down mountains. This was like a legitimate driving thing. So Tokyo
Right.
Drift is definitely my second favorite in the series. If you haven't seen this
That's
one
it.
because it doesn't have Vin Diesel or Paul Walker, you're doing yourself an injustice. You need to see this movie.
Yeah, it's really good. It's probably my third favorite, but it's a really good movie. Like it'll surprise you with how good it is, since the main character is completely new. Yeah, the guys you normally see are never in it, and
Yeah, Bow Wow. Bow Wow is
Bow
probably
Wow's
the most popular guy again. So
and he was actually pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
I was surprised by him.
I loved his car. I loved his car. I can't remember what it was now, but he had the Hulk.
It was that big cube-looking
Yeah.
fist car or whatever.
But it had like
fist
the Hulk.
car.
It was like what was it? All the cars that were like coming around like that turnstile in Japan, and he's just like looking like, "Is this your car?" He's like, "That's
Oh.
not mine." And then you see the car show up, and he's like, "Really? This is it?"
Yeah.
It was, but
Yeah, dude, it was bad.
it was funny the first time I saw it. I thought that was hilarious. But so yeah, Tokyo Drift was the last one in the series that did not, the only one in the series that really did not feature Paul Walker or Vin Diesel. Yes, Vin Diesel's in it, but he's not actually in it. He has like the cameo at the end that led on to the next movies. The last part of the so far what we have the franchise. So then we got, this is where it kind of got convoluted, because you had Fast and the Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious, and then Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. So then it's just
Fast and Furious.
Fast and Furious, and it's like if we were to look at these movies like 20 years down the road, and you wanted to watch these in order, it would get really confusing really fast. Like there is the Fast and the Furious, and there's also Fast and Furious. So which one comes first?
Right, and then chronologically, all these movies,
Are
which you
completely
find
out
out,
of
which you
whack.
only find out in this movie, it goes in an insane direction.
So it actually
like,
goes. It goes. What is it? 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 3.
7.
Yeah, seven falls in like
7 is the last
So the
one.
beginning of 7 is before 3, like the first like 15, 20 minutes is before 3, and then you have the scene, the closure scene, and then you have like the last of it's at the end of the trilogy, or the storyline pretty much.
Yeah. Yep.
But Fast and Furious, personally, my least favorite in the series.
This movie
It was-
stinks.
It. I don't
I
know
hate
what they
this
were trying to do.
movie.
Like, so you have this guy named, what was it, Braga, who's like
Yeah.
this Mexican drug, once again, like another like drug smuggler that's trying to get his. And there's like this weird window they have to cross the desert and to like go into
Yep.
this cavern and like drive out. And then typically whenever they get out, they kill all the drivers.
Yep.
But this, I don't know. I never really liked this movie. I felt like it took so long to start. Then it starts and it just kind of ends. Like
Yeah,
feels
so
like
it's
really
important
forced
because
and
it
fast.
introduces a lot and all
Yeah.
that, and it gets all the characters together for 5 and 6.
'Cause
Like
Letty
it's
dies
got
in this one as
Giselle.
well.
Yeah, it's got Giselle in it. It's got Letty, which kind of kickstart the rest of the stuff. It's
Han's
got
in
Han
it.
in it still. It's got everybody, but it's just really dumb. Like
It-
it's way too serious. Like the best part about all these movies is that they don't take themselves too seriously.
No, they don't.
Except for this one. This one is always, it's such a downer. Like it's just, oh yeah, drug rings and all this stuff, and it's just not very good.
Yeah,
it's
because
boring.
what is it? They start off, they're like stealing like oil from like fuel tankers, pretty much.
Yep.
If this is the correct one, I think it is. And they like
It
all
is.
have like all this money and stuff. But then the middle of the movie, it's not. There's no real. There's like a Subaru Impreza, but there's like the cars are just kind of not really there. Like the GTR.
There's a
makes
Hummer.
Yeah.
Like who cares?
Yeah, a GTR makes the comeback in the race scene between whenever they're trying to become the next smugglers for this Braga guy. But yeah, that's. I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, it's not a terrible movie, but for the series, it's just not personally good to me.
Yeah, I don't. It's like I don't even really like this as a movie so much. Like, there's some parts that are okay. Like, I thought the underground tunnel part at the end was pretty cool, just because it's it's super narrow and they got to be really precise, and there's a tense time limit. But yeah, this one wasn't so great. However, it does end with Dom getting arrested, which sets up Fast Five with a pretty sweet opening spot.
Yeah, the ending was great. That was probably the best part of the whole entire series to me, was the ending of this movie, because you're like, oh crap, Dom's going to prison. Then it's like, no, he's not.
Yep.
They're gonna bust him out, and then you have to wait like 2 or 3 years till the next one to come out, and then yeah, the ending was great, but that's about it.
Yeah. Let's go on to Fast Five, because this is a much better movie. It's actually my favorite. My favorite, up there with 7. Like, I can't really decide, because right now I think 7's my favorite, but I also just saw it yesterday.
Yeah. So you go ahead, Fast Five. You go right ahead. You get into that one.
Yeah. So it starts with them breaking Dom out of a prison bus, which was really cool that they kind of hijack in the desert. And then they have to steal cars from a moving train that has like either DEA agent, I think it's DEA agents or something like that, like drug agents. And so Dom's working, and let's see, Brian and what's his sister's name, Mia, or
Yes.
Brian's
Yeah, Mia.
girlfriend and
Mia.
wife, Mia. Yeah. So they
Tyrese comes back. So does Ludacris.
yes, Tyrese is back. So
sorry,
so is Ludacris. All these guys come
Rome
back.
and Rome and Tej. Sorry.
Yeah, so they're there, and they steal these cars from the U.S. government, and they're in Rio de Janeiro, and so the government sends in Hobbs to track them down. And Hobbs is played by The Rock.
Greatest performance by The Rock ever is in this series. I will
The
say
Rock-
that, and I will stand by it all the time.
Yes, this is The Rock. These are The Rock's best roles, definitely, because he is incredibly funny, and he's great at action stuff, but he's not very good at being serious. So this is the perfect mix for him, because he plays that kind of macho badass guy, but he's also has a lot of funny lines. So he's essentially trying to track them down the entire time, and their whole goal for this is to steal $100 million from pretty much one of the richest people in Rio, trying to take him down and steal all of his money. So pretty much the whole thing is they have a vault that they're going after. And the whole
ending of
time
this
they're
was
like
so
trying to
bad,
figure
I
out. I love the ending of this movie. So the whole time they're trying to figure out, how are we gonna break into this vault? They get a fake vault, to try and crack it and all that. And pretty much their idea for, hey, how do we steal this vault, is to literally steal the vault and everything inside of it, using 2 cars, 2 Chargers, I believe. I'm not as good with the cars.
Two Dodge Chargers,
They hook
which
up,
would never work. Their tires
Yes.
would have burnt out so fast in the
yeah.
beginning whenever they're trying to pull it
and the
out.
thing is, they steal it, they hook it up, and they're just dragging it through the streets of Rio, just back and
flailing
forth,
around,
and
yeah.
destroying buildings and destroying cars and all of that, while Hobbs is chasing them
Yep.
the entire time, trying to stop him. And it turns out that they're able to, as they're being chased, they're able to swap out the vault for the fake vault that they have, and then when they end up
Yeah.
getting caught, they go, "Oh, yep, you can have whatever's in the vault," and it's empty.
Nothing.
And it's empty. So this movie, I think, is one of the best. Definitely number 2, if not number 1.
Yep.
Just because the whole story is compact and it makes sense.
So
Like, it's not all out there. It's, hey, we want to steal this money because we have no money because we can't go back to the U.S. because we're criminals.
also,
and they do it.
Vince. You remember Vince from Part 1? He comes back in this one as well, which was pretty much
Yeah,
Which is pretty much
I
like
don't really like that guy.
no, I don't
though.
either. But he was like Brian's like arch nemesis. He was the guy that was
Yes.
always on to Brian in the first movie, pretty much, and he also loved
Yeah.
Mia or liked Mia, and Mia liked Brian.
Yeah.
So obviously, him and Brian don't get along. But he came back. It wasn't really necessary to bring him back, but it was kind of nice to see somebody back again. 'Cause,
Yeah, and he
what was
turns on him, but then he ends up redeeming himself
Yeah.
before he dies. So yeah, he had a nice little arc in the movie for sure.
because Jesse died in the first one. The other guy, I don't remember his name, but he never made a return, which was kind of sad. But Vince came back, which was kind of cool. But yeah, The
Yep.
Rock. The Rock. This is probably one of The Rock's best performances.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
been in a lot of other movies. Like you said, he cannot play a serious role. Like what was it?
Faster.
faster was just he tried to be too serious, and it's like I can't take you seriously. All I see is you just like raising your eyebrow,
doesn't matter what your
lifting
name
up
is.
your microphone, and just moving
Your
your
Rudy
tongue
Poo
and
candy ass.
pie eating. Yeah.
Yeah. Jabroni beaten,
It's
pie
nothing
eaten.
against. It's not saying that he's a bad actor. It's just that we both have had so much with The Rock that we just can't take him seriously anymore.
Yes.
So you could say it's our fault, but I don't know. I don't know.
He's so good in this, though. Like,
yeah.
the addition of The Rock to this series, I think, elevates the last 3 movies to such a high level just because
'Cause they
he plays a
were-
great villain in this one,
Uh-huh.
and then he plays a great villain / ally in the next one, and then he's obviously a badass in Furious 7. So,
Yeah, so this
so he's an awesome addition.
what was it? So people don't realize how much the fans impact Vin Diesel, which is why I love Vin Diesel so much as well. If I had to pick any A-list actor in the world as my favorite, it'd be Vin Diesel, not just because I think he's a good actor or whatever, but he's actually a good person. He's not like a
Yeah, he's a good dude,
He's not
and he's a
like
nerd, so that's cool.
He's not a terrible human being, but they were originally writing this, and Tommy Lee Jones was supposed to be cast into this part as Hobbs.
Ugh,
Something you didn't know,
what the
right?
hell?
Some
Yeah.
weird things you find, but somebody like I can't remember the exact thing on Twitter. They said, "Man, it'd be really great if you and The Rock had like a showdown on the big screen," and then they were just like, Vin Diesel's like, "That's a great idea."
Wait, that's way better.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
way better.
So then they reworked the character of Hobbs to be more of The Rock, and then it was The Rock versus Vin Diesel, which was whoever said that on Twitter. Thank you very much, because you made the series that much better. I mean, it got more appeal from like the other communities, like the wrestling community and stuff that love The
Yeah.
Rock. But I mean, I already liked the series anyways. But yeah, having The Rock in there was a great move.
Oh yeah.
No big cars in this. I think once again you saw another Impreza. We talked about the Dodge Chargers, but this is where I thought the movie was getting really out of hand, like the series. But like I think my thing is that if you looked at this like an 80s or like 90s action movie, it's great. That's all it is at that point.
Oh,
It's just
yeah.
a straight up
It's
action
absurd.
movie. There's nothing is in the realm of reality except for maybe the characters, but everything else is just so far out there.
Yeah. So I watched these last 3 movies in the series with just the biggest, stupidest grin on my face because I'm just enjoying it so much. So yeah, this one and 7 are definitely the pinnacle for me
Yeah.
of the series.
And then we have Fast and Furious 6. So it's just kind of
Yeah.
Once
Real
again,
quick. Right. Fast 5, Furious 7,
Fast
and Furious 6. What
So,
the heck?
This movie is really, really long. It seems
Yeah.
like, and it
It
feels
drags
that
a
way.
little bit in the
But
beginning.
Did you know that this was supposed to be 2 different movies?
No.
So
I did not know that.
There's the huge tank scene, kind of like in the middle end of the movie, and then there's the
Right.
huge, the 25-mile runway airplane scene at the
Airplane
end of the
scene.
movie. Those were supposed to be
Yep.
2 different endings to the movies.
Really?
To the 2 different movies. Yeah, I was reading about this stuff today. This is stuff I didn't know. Like, I never really delved into the logic of Fast and the Furious. It was just
Right.
Fast and the Furious. But
Right.
what is it? Pretty much like Dom and Hobbs, Vin Diesel and The Rock, they are working together to stop like a common enemy, pretty much. Because the enemy has Letty as like a. So they figured out Letty was alive at the end of 5. Like you can see right now
Right,
in the
yep.
trailer, they're showing that. So
Yeah.
he's bringing that to
picture.
Dom,
Yep.
and he's trying to get Letty back, and Hobbs is trying to stop the guy. It's in Paris. I can't remember his name now.
Shaw.
Shaw, yeah. And then
Owen Shaw.
he pretty much gets like his team to try and help stop him and get Letty back. That's his drive. When Hobbs's drive is to pretty much stop him. And
Right.
it's a really long movie. It's not a bad movie, but it's definitely not at the, like you said, like the height of 5 and the height of 7. It kind of fell in between and kind of lost its muster, I think. I feel like they were trying to top 5 and make 6 bigger, but they kind of fell short, I think. I mean, you might think
Yeah, I
differently.
think I really like this movie.
Yeah, I like it too. It's just
I
I,
would
don't
say-
feel like it's up there with
yeah.
5 and 7 with me.
I don't even think it's as good as 3. I think it's behind 3, but I still think it's good. But I mean, it's it picks up. The ending is awesome. Like the ending is like huge roller coaster ride. Like
Yeah.
it's so long, but it's so entertaining. But yeah, but that first part where they're kind of setting up all the stuff between Shaw and the good guys and all that is just kind of, it gets a little dull at times just because
Yeah.
it goes on for so long. Like the strength of these movies is not in the talking, and I feel like there's too much talking and there's too much with Letty where it's like, oh, I don't remember things, and
Yeah.
oh, I'm actually bad, and then they're like, what? No,
You're
you're
actually
good. And she's like,
good.
no, I'm bad, and then
Yeah,
like,
no,
it's
these-
too. It just takes a little bit too long.
Yeah, it's-
especially because I'm not the biggest Michelle Rodriguez fan. So the fact that like this movie is huge on her character is kind of kind of annoying to me.
And I mean,
But,
like, I understand why, because, like, that love between Dom and Letty, it's there, it's genuine, I think, but
Oh, she has amnesia.
the movie drags on way too long. Like, that's just my
Yeah.
thought. It's a good movie. I had this thing the whole entire time I was watching. The end of it was pretty much like, this is the longest runway in the history of man. Like, this runway
yeah.
is ridiculous. It's then they did, like, I was watching some video about it, like top 10 weird facts about Fast and the Furious, and somebody actually did the math, and the runway would have to be like, I think it was 18 to 25
miles
long
long.
for that scene to actually work. And I'm like, that sounds about right. That
Yeah,
But-
like, ugh, that makes sense. But yeah,
Yeah.
but I think the end scene with the plane is awesome, where the
Yeah,
plane's
it's
trying
a-
to take off, but
it's
the
a
guys
great
are trying to
action
stop
scene.
it.
It's amazing.
They're
action
trying to
scene.
shoot the grappling hooks into it to slow it down, and at the end of it, Vin Diesel's character he just drives his car
Out of the
through the
plane.
front of a burning plane.
Yep.
It doesn't make sense at all, but it is awesome.
But it's great. And then
Yes.
then at the end of it, to top it all off, you have Jason Statham's character. You see the recreation of Tokyo Drift scene. It's actually the actual
Yep.
scene. And Han's car, the RX-7, getting T-boned by a Cadillac or like a Lexus, and just flipping over and catching on fire. And you see Jason Statham walking and talking on the phone. He's like Dominic Toretto, you don't know me, but you're about to. And then it just ends, and it's like,
Yeah.
what just
What?
happened? What
Yeah.
just happened? And it's so then you come to figure out, after yeah. So we won't talk any more about that yet. We'll get to that in probably another 2 or 3 minutes. But Fast 6 is good. I just feel like it drags
Yeah.
on too long. Like you said,
Yep.
there's too much talking, and the whole trying to get Letty back on the good side. She has amnesia. It's been done before 1,000 times, so it's
Right.
It's good, but it's definitely in my bottom 3 for the series personally.
Yep.
With 4 and 2, I would say.
Yeah.
But Fast 6 is still good. It's got that nice. It's nice to see Michelle Rodriguez come back to the team, because that was something that once again another fan said that they wanted to see Michelle Rodriguez back, and she did not know she was going to be.
Weird fans.
Yeah, she did not know that she was going to be back in the series until she actually went to the theater and saw Fast 5.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh,
she was
that's
like-
kind of cool.
She's like, I saw it. Then they showed my picture at the end, and I was like, what?
Like, that's me. What
yeah,
the hell?
Yeah, so I don't know how true that is, because they would have to have some kind of a consent to show. I mean, I know she was in the series before. I'm not sure how all the legal stuff works, but I feel like she'd have to give some
Right.
consent to show her character or something. Or I feel like they would at least let her know, hey, just so you know, you're gonna be in this movie. There's gonna be a
Right.
picture of you for 10 seconds at the very end of the movie. But,
Yeah.
But she doesn't. I find that kind of hard to believe, but it's possible. I don't know.
Yeah.
So then we got April the 3rd.
Yes.
2015, Furious 7 drops.
Truly was a good Friday.
Yes. So Paul Walker died. What was it, almost
That's
a year
sad.
and a half ago?
Yeah, it was like a year and 3 months or something.
Yeah.
Something
So
like
it's
that.
it was at the very end of 2013, I think, and they
Yep.
weren't even done filming yet. So, and I mean, the chemistry between the characters was not just genuine on screen. I think it was off screen as well. I follow Vin Diesel on Facebook, and he actually posts a lot of picture of them all together laughing, and looks like they're eating and having a good time, not just in character as the Toretto family, but as Michelle Rodriguez, as Tyrese, as Ludacris, as Paul Walker, all those characters and stuff like that. So they're actually genuinely friends. Vin Diesel pretty much said he felt
Yeah.
like he lost a brother. So they were able to finish the movie. I think Paul Walker was halfway done filming his segments, and then they had his 2 brothers come in and like be like stand-ins and do stuff and work in their digital magic to make Paul Walker be on the screen to finish out the movie, which was fantastic that they didn't just like kill him off in some random scene just to make it easy. They actually went the extra mile to finish out the movie and have
they gave him a nice ending.
Yeah, and have Paul Walker in it. We'll get to the ending after we're done, but
right.
You want to go over your impressions of the? I guess I'm trying to think of what the story was now. I mean, it was.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
So Deckard Shaw, which is a great dumb action movie name. Owen Shaw's brother, played by Jason Statham, pretty much wants to hunt down and kill Dom and his crew for killing his brother. So you see at the very beginning of the movie, or Brian O'Connor, he's adjusting to suburban life, in his nice house with his wife and his kid. With the funny part where you think he's about to race, and then he goes 2 feet and he's in a minivan at his kid's daycare. So that was really funny. But he's adjusting to family life, and all of a sudden there's a mysterious package from Japan on his porch, and it's the scene from the trailer where all of a sudden they realize that, or Dom gets a call and he realizes that it's actually a bomb and it blows up. So clearly somebody is out to try and get them. So it turns out that it's Shaw's brother.
Deckard Shaw.
Deckard Shaw, yes. And Deckard Shaw ends up beating the crap out of The Rock.
But he did get a rock
partially
bottom
because he
through
gets
a
with a
table.
grenade. Yes. And I was going to say the best part is their fisticuffs, and then all of a sudden The Rock gives him a rock bottom through a glass table, which is awesome. And I marked out huge in the theater. I was going crazy, and everyone around me was just kind of like, hey, threw him to a table.
You're just
no
like,
one understood it was rock bottom. He gave him the rock bottom. But yeah, so The Rock ends up going to the hospital, which plays a part later in probably the most macho scene in a movie since the Predator handshake.
the manliest handshake ever.
Which we talked about before. But yeah, so the whole point of the movie is they're getting chased and they need to figure out why. And then they introduce a really cool new character played by Kurt Russell.
Oh God,
I forget what his
love
name
his
is.
character. I can't remember either, but
Like Mr. Nobody or Doctor. It sounds like a James Bond character almost because it's some goofy generic name. But he pretty much says like, hey, if you take
Do this for me.
do this thing for me where this hacker has this piece of equipment called the God's Eye, where it'll literally find anybody in the world for you within a couple of hours by tapping into every camera and microphone in the world. I'll let you use it to get to Shaw so that you can kill him and end this. So they end up having a really cool chase scene through the mountains in, I think, Azerbaijan or something like that, someplace like that in Eastern Europe, I believe.
Abu Dhabi.
No,
yeah, you're right. No,
not
sorry.
Abu Dhabi yet.
That's the other scene. Yep, you're right.
Yes.
Sorry.
So they're going to get the hacker.
And that scene was, I didn't really.
It was
watch
awesome.
I didn't really watch. So if I know I'm going to see a movie, I'll watch like a 30-second teaser trailer. But like as far as like the trailer we just showed, that's like 3 minutes. I try not to watch those because I feel like they give away too much of the movie. And I knew I was going to watch this, so like. I mean, like, I saw the trailer where, like, as you saw, like, Brian O'Connor, Paul Walker's character, like, jumps and grabs, like, the spoiler of Letty, Michelle Rodriguez's car. I knew he was going to survive that, but just, like, getting there, I was like, whoa, what's going on? And then we were talking about this on the phone, but they so spoiler alert, there's going to be spoilers about Furious 7.
Spoilers.
So if you have not, we haven't really talked too much that's outside the trailer yet, but if you have not seen this movie yet, I would suggest, turning this off or, watching it later and going to see this movie. I highly recommend seeing this in theaters. Don't spoil it for yourself. It's great.
Yeah.
So
Go
with
watch
that
it.
said, here we go. So they get into the bus and Paul Walker gets Ramsey, who's the hacker. And then and then like they're driving along and then eventually they accidentally shoot the bus driver. And I think me and you had the same thought, like, why is the bus still driving at this point?
Right, yeah. Why is it still going? I didn't even realize there was a driver.
The precious cargo is gone, and they're still just driving. Like, okay, if you stop, like, then they're just going to get away. But it's like, why are you still just going? You know, why don't you stop? Or you know,
It was crazy.
But that whole scene where he's like fighting the other guy, I don't know his name. You said he was from like
Tony Jaa.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is in the Protector, I believe. Pretty much just action movies from.
yeah.
I don't know what country he's from, but
Maybe Korea
Eastern
or
action
something.
movies. Yeah, Korean or Philippines or something like that.
Yeah, he's
but
great.
he
I
is
love
a
his character.
badass.
Yeah,
he is an absolute badass
yeah.
in this movie and in every other movie.
And then after that's all over, they have Ramsey back with them like on this. It looks like a lake or like an ocean, and they're all talking. And she was like, she said something, and then he said, they're like, you don't know anything about us. She's like, I know enough. And she's like, you're like an ex-cop looking at Brian, Paul Walker's
Yep.
character. Like, you're an ex-cop with the way you fight, or you're ex-military. And then
Right, one of the two.
she looks at Ludacris, because him and Tyrese were having a conversation, Tej and Roman, and they were talking about, like, she ain't no hacker. She don't have those big old glasses with the pimples and the button-up
right, with
shirt.
the pimples and the soda.
And he's like, shut up, you know what you're talking about. She's like, you're obviously the tech guy because you take offense to the hacker comment. And then she looks at Vin Diesel. She's like, Alpha. And then she looks at Michelle Rodriguez. She's like, Mrs. Alpha. And then
Mrs. Alpha.
she looks at Roman, Tyrese's character, and she's like, Joker. He's like, you're wrong. Double Alpha.
Right, double alpha.
But so there's
Yeah, that was funny.
one other probably my favorite scene of the movie is pretty early on. Whenever they're on the plane, and they're just like waiting to go, and they're all like, you know, backing up one at a time. Like Vin Diesel goes, then I think it's Paul Walker, then Michelle Rodriguez.
And they're not. And real quick, they're not jumping out of the plane.
they're driving
cars
out of the plane.
Out of the plane.
And then they all four get out, and then they're like, "All right, Rome, you go." And he's like, "I can't do it." And they're like, "What do you mean?"
Right.
He's like, "I can't do it." He's like, "I'll just stay up here with the pilot, and I'll make sure everything goes good up here for you guys down there," because he's afraid to go. And then they're like, "We knew this would happen." And then they're like, "Tej, hit it," and he's like, "What?" And a big old parachute comes out the back, and just like,
shoots him out the plane.
and he's like hitting the brakes as hard as he can, trying to stop the car, and the car just goes flying out of the plane.
Yep.
And then, like, in typical, like, it seemed like Looney Tune fashion, the other cars land on the ground and they're driving away, and then you see Roman's car just,
He's
like,
just
spinning in the
spinning.
air, just, like, flying away. And it was like, I was in the theater with about 10 people because I went to, like, the first 10:30 showing, and I was
Yeah.
just laughing so loud, and I felt kind of bad because I see that car, I'm just like, that's the funniest thing I've seen, like, in a year. Just
And he's like, "I'll catch up with you later, guys." He's just like slowly spinning away.
but it was great.
Yes,
But
that was so good.
I just wanted to talk about that scene. But then,
Then they go to Abu Dhabi.
yeah, and they meet up with one of Ramsey's contacts that she gave the God's Eye hard drive to. Turns out he sold it to some like rich trust fund kid,
Prince,
that has
some chic Prince guy.
yeah. See,
Okay.
I went to the bathroom whenever they were explaining all that stuff because like I got like 5 minutes, I can go to the
Oh.
bathroom real quick.
Yeah,
But then I get back and they're like at the party, and I was like, okay, I kind of know what happened. The guy got him into the party. That's what I gathered
Yep.
from the conversation they had. And
pretty much.
he has like 1 in 7 cars in the world. That's like this ridiculous, like I think it's like they said like like $10 million car or
Something ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd never heard of it before, but it looked
But he-
super cool.
he
Although
put-
it also looked kind of like a Lamborghini.
but he put like this like flash drive into it to make his car faster or better. Something
I didn't
so
understand.
weird. I didn't either. But
That part didn't make
Yeah.
a lick of sense
But-
at all.
the scene inside of his loft or like his condo or whatever was so great because they're going over the plan, you know, like Tej and Ramsey are doing their thing, and it's like, all right, you know what you're doing, Dom, you know what you're doing, Michelle, and it's like, Paul, you know, or Brian, you know what you're doing. He's like, and then Roman's like, what am I doing? They're like, no, we already covered everything. He's like, what am I supposed to do? It's like, you just do what you do best. He's like, oh, okay. It just starts like making a fool of himself in front of everybody.
Yes. Oh my God. It was that scene is so great because everybody's kind of doing their thing in the middle of this huge party.
huge party. Like
Yeah,
in this guy's
and-
like private home, pretty much.
Right. And this guy's bodyguard includes Ronda Rousey.
Ronda
So,
Rousey. That's what I said.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
why
so she
WrestleMania was
she kicks
connected
some
with
ass.
Furious 7.
Yeah.
Yeah,
she's
her
she's pretty
acting,
badass. So,
but her acting was
is pretty just bad.
pretty.
It is bad. It is
pretty
ass.
terrible. But her fighting was
Yeah.
great. Although if that
Yes.
would have been a real fight, Michelle Rodriguez would have been knocked out in like 2 seconds.
Oh yeah, no,
But-
Ronda Rousey's scary. But yeah. So one of my favorite parts of the movie, because I just love absurd stuff, is literally Vin Diesel picks up this car
Oh,
and
yes.
just holds it for like
A
I don't know,
couple
a couple of minutes while Brian's trying to find this little thing in there.
What was it?
The
He
little
lifts it up.
thingy.
He lifts it up. Paul goes under the car and comes back out. He's like, "Hey, you sure you got this?"
Yeah, he's just get in there. Because at first he like lifts it up and he's clearly like struggling, but then after on he's
Yeah.
just good.
Yeah, he just seems like he's fine. But
Yeah.
was it that
But
Jason
then so they get
Statham-
found out. Yes.
Jason Statham.
They get
shows
found
up,
out and Jason Statham crashes the party with a gun.
and
With a
then
gun
they're-
with an underbarrel grenade launcher on
And
it.
then they're just like driving around this little apartment loft,
Yep.
you know, whatever you want to call it, suite. And then they start jumping between buildings, and it was the craziest thing ever.
Yes.
And then by the time they completely crash the car and they jump out, and it goes falling from like hundreds of stories up.
It's just a hunk of
Yeah,
metal.
it's a hunk of
just like
metal.
all just the skeleton, the frame of the car.
Yep.
It's yep, all for a little tiny flash drive.
Yep.
Now, granted, it's pretty powerful. It's a pretty powerful
Yeah.
thing, but all for that one thing.
So then we go back and we have Kurt Russell's character at this point because now they have God's Eye, and this is the point
Yes.
where I was waiting for Kurt Russell's character to turn on. He literally gets God's Eye. He's like, "Okay, cool, there it is. All right, here you go," and he hands it right back to him. He's like, "Use it to find Shaw. Use it to find."
Yeah, I thought that was crazy. I thought he for sure was
Like-
going to turn.
But Kurt Russell's character is just so awkward and hilarious in this movie at the
Yeah.
same time. Like I was just not expecting it, and then
He was definitely a pleasant surprise. I didn't even know he was in the movie
no, me neither.
until I saw reviews about it. They're like, "Oh, Kurt Russell's great." I'm like, "Kurt Russell? What the heck?"
Because then they end up like then they find Shaw and then like you know he's like all right we'll attack in the morning but he doesn't want to take his team because they're racers they're not shooters besides maybe Brian he's the only one that's trained with a weapon so then he takes Kurt Russell's character and their army with and also you know Brian shows up and they go and attack Shaw and then Shaw finds out that he has like this other army that was from the other place that had Ramsey helping him now and then they end up getting their hands on God's Eye. And like Kurt Russell gets shot, and you think he's gonna die. They're gonna, you know,
Right.
getting away. And he's like, "Tom, I really got to tell you something." and he's like, "It's really important." He's like, "What?" He's like, "You have to try the Belgium ale."
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's like, did that really just happen? Because earlier in the movie, he's like, you know, he's like, "I don't know about you, but I don't have a beer." And he just goes over like this huge keg, pours himself a glass. He's like, "You want some?" He's like, "I'm more of a Corona guy myself." He's like, "I knew that." Just reaches down and
Right.
pulls out like this bucket of ice.
Yeah, he
with
grabs
like
out a bucket, a Corona
with like
bucket.
6 Coronas in it, and he's like,
Oh,
"Here
so
you go," and
funny.
hands him a bottle opener. It was great, but then he's like, "You really have to try the Belgium ale." Like, dude, that scene right
Right.
there just solidified Kurt Russell's spot in the Fast and the Furious franchise.
Oh,
like he
yeah.
could never
Yeah.
come back, and he would be like one of my favorite like fill-in characters ever, just because of
Yeah,
that
he
like
was-
those few
he was
scenes that he had.
He's if they make more, which I mean they're planning on doing it. He needs to be a
Yeah.
central character in those because he was awesome,
Yeah, But,
absolutely awesome.
yeah, that was just great. I loved
Yep.
Kurt Russell. Every second Kurt Russell was in this. So then at
Yes.
this point is whenever they
Go back to L.A.
Go back to LA, and we're getting to the end of the movie, and the LA scene, it's just
so
wow.
good.
It's so
It's-
crazy.
It's so impressive. Like there is not a dull moment in this, and they switch between all sorts of different characters.
it's
Like,
like,
you've got
yeah,
the
5
rebel leader, you've got Shaw, you've got Dom, you've got then Brian and
The
all the other
karate
guys
guy.
trying to play hot potato with
Ramsey.
the hacker Ramsey. So and all of it kind of intertwines into a really awesome scene. And then obviously as part of the trailer, The Rock comes back at this point.
Oh,
And
his
he
introduction is
he has
great.
a cast. He has a cast on his arm, and he just goes and he just flexes, and the thing breaks.
And just pulls
Like
it off his arm.
it's the manliest thing since the flexing handshake in Predator. Like it
Yes.
was incredible. He's like, "Daddy's got to go to work." Breaks
Yeah.
a cast.
And then he
No big
hijacks
deal.
an ambulance, and he's driving
Yes.
this ambulance, and there's like this predator that's following the hot potato car that they're switching Ramsey between, and he just drives it off of this bridge and just lands right on top of the predator and destroys it. Like I said, that's like
Blows it.
a 1 in a billion chance of ever happening.
It's so-
only
it's so
only the Rock could do it. Then he literally just pulls off a chain gun, and she's like, "Hey, where's the cavalry?" He's like, "Woman, I am the cavalry."
But then he also the thing's eye is like twitching as if it's like a real person.
And he pulls out his gun and just double taps
shoots
it.
twice, So like, what just happened? They're like, I think he just double tapped our drone. Just like, what the heck? Oh,
It's so
I love The Rock.
absurd and so random. But then so then there's like this helicopter flying around trying to stop everybody, trying to shoot them.
Right.
It's obviously the guys that are trying to get Ramsey because they have God's Eye, but Ramsey
Yep.
can still hack it. So they're like, we have to kill Ramsey. That's why they came to L.A. after they had God's Eye.
Yeah.
But then he has like this huge minigun. He looks like Jesse Ventura from Predator, another Predator reference.
Yes, he does.
And he just
Yeah.
starts shooting it. And there's a gunner like with the 50 cal. He kills the gunner with like the first like 5 shots, and then
Yep.
the rebel leader, general, whatever. Then he starts shooting. He can't seem to hit this guy to save his life at this point. He's just straight up just like shooting everywhere. And this whole time, like, you know, Brian's trying to get the cell tower reactivated, and he's fighting his guy. Then you have like Dominique fighting Shaw on top of this parking garage.
Right.
And it's just, oh man, it was just the whole ending scene was just amazing.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
Jason,
and it's cool because it wasn't like the good guys were hiding from the bad guys or vice versa. Like,
yeah, they were
they
just
had
waiting.
to be within 2 miles of the helicopter
Yeah,
to
hack
hack
into
the God's Eye. So
Eye.
it's like they had to be super close to each other and had to interact. So
Yeah.
it was an awesome ending. Just so much action. And it was maybe 25, 30 minutes maybe, this last scene, and it went by so fast. It was so
But it was
good.
the only complaint I had. I felt like the ending to Statham's and Diesel's fight felt kind of like rushed. Like,
Yeah,
but
it was
other
kind
than-
of stupid.
But other than that, the fight was great. Like he gets
Yeah.
out. He has like this. What did he have? Because he like used his like charger he had him like, you know, revved up like he always does, and landed on top of Jason Statham's car. And then Jason Statham gets out, and he was like,
he just had like pieces of his car almost.
yeah. And then like
Dom had those huge wrenches, and he just had pieces of
Tom
his
gets
car.
out. He has like this big ass shotgun. He's like, what? Did you think this was gonna be a street fight? And then like he throws his shotgun down and grabs 2 wrenches. He's like, well, you're right, or something like that. And then they just start fighting,
Right.
and it was a great scene. Obviously, I think that if that had been a real fight, even with the characters in the movie, Jason Statham would have kicked his ass because he was like prior SAS, Special Forces, and then Dom's just some dude off the street that can beat some ass. He didn't really have
Right.
like any like crazy martial arts or military training, but it still worked out in the better portion of the movie. The movie kind of ends with Jason Statham being locked up and all the characters sitting on the beach together. And, you know, like they're all sitting there together, and Mia's playing with their son Jack. And then, you know, they come and get Brian. They're like, come on, come play with us. And then, you know, it's what is it? Roman, Tej, Letty, and Dom all sitting there together. And then, you know, Dom stands up, and they're like, hey, are you going to say goodbye? And he's like, it's never really goodbye. And then you see, like, you know,
Yeah.
the O'Connor family, the 3 of them up there at the beach. And at this point, I was kind of confused. Like, when I was watching, I was like, what does he mean? Like, I don't get it. Like, is he going somewhere?
Right.
And why is Letty not going with him? Then he got in the car, and I figured, I was like, oh, this is not really a goodbye to Brian O'Connor. This is actually Vin Diesel saying goodbye to Paul Walker.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which, like you said, was like, I agree with what you said. Like, it was like the most sincere thing you could ever do. Like, it was just...
Yeah. For a whole series about fast cars, hot chicks, and, you know, a
just
lot of
crazy
action,
crap.
like it turned, you know, it became, and they always talk about, oh, it's about family, which, you know, it seems kind of hokey in a lot of movies, but somehow they kind of pull it off in the
worked.
Fast and Furious movies.
It worked great.
And it really, you know, it really came across as a absolutely sincere moment
'Cause
at the
then,
end of this movie.
What is it?
Yeah.
Dom's like driving. He's, you know, you see like this overhead, like it looks like a helicopter shot pretty much. He comes up
Yep.
and stops at the stoplight. A car goes across, or like a stop sign. Then like you see like this white super pull up, and it's white, straight white. And then like you see Brian or Paul Walker's character sitting there. He looked really young to me too. So this is the point where I think it was straight up like digital from like
Yeah, it was digital.
maybe
stuff.
like the original movie. He's like, you didn't think you were gonna leave without saying goodbye, did you? And it's just like,
Yep.
at that point, I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
Right.
Like, this is like the saddest thing ever. And then they both drive, and they're just driving, and there's like that really like sad, like, you know, I'm going to miss you, but I'll see you soon type music playing pretty
right,
much.
yeah.
And they're just
And then
like,
they're driving,
and
and,
there's
then
just-
Paul Walker just goes off.
yeah. And it's like, and this
on
whole
a
time,
different
there's
road.
like, there's different scenes from like the old movies.
Yep.
kind of like flashing, kind of like the tribute that we played at the beginning for Paul Walker, from the actually from the Fast and the Furious directors and producers that they made. I'm sure Vin Diesel had a lot to do with that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, just like that, the ending of it, like I'm pretty sure that this is the end of the Toretto story of the Fast and the Furious.
Yeah,
which
I hope
really
so.
hope it is. Like, unless they do something like where they don't have Mia and they really don't talk about the O'Connor family anymore.
If they do a Hobbs spinoff, I'm down.
Yeah, but
Super down.
the ending was just perfect. Like,
Yes.
I stayed.
It was
I stayed
so good.
I stayed through the entire credits because I went to a special theater where my friend works. I'll talk about that in a second. And there was no end scene after the credits. The credits
Right.
end, and
Yep.
that's it. But I would like to give a huge shout out to Joe Devine, who is the main host on Joe Diesel's Half Hour Power over at Blog Talk Radio. He got me into the theater for free to see it downtown Indianapolis with really, really comfortable reclining seats. And then after the show, I got like the grand tour of actually a movie theater.
Right.
I've never had the grand tour. I got to go up to the projection room. It was great. Like, this is stuff that I've always wanted to see. That I've only ever seen like in movies like Last Action Hero with like the huge,
Yeah.
the huge.
That's exactly what I said when you talked about it, and then
The
you were like,
huge-
"Yeah, it was exactly like that."
The huge reels.
That's exactly what
I actually referenced that too because he was talking about
Yeah.
everything's so digital now. Like they have like these pretty much like a huge box with like a projector that comes out, and they have like the little sound knob so they can watch, and they have like their huge window that's about the size of like your head, so you can actually watch the movie too if you're up there making sure everything's working. But before they used to have like these huge like film reels that they had to actually put on there. They had to rewind themselves. They had to like tape them together. They had to add the trailers to the film itself to play before it, and all that, amazing stuff or whatever. It was a lot of work that went into it. Whereas today, I was like, so is everything just on a timer? He's like, yeah, everything's on a timer. So that like movies are going to play whenever they're supposed to. The sound's going to automatically come on. I was like, wow, technology sometimes kind of sucks
It's cool.
for stuff like this, because I look back to movies like Last Action Hero. That made me like love film, like just the way it worked. Just the whole film reel. He's like, nobody's ever gonna know what it's like to come up here to like 1,000 foot of film reel just on the floor that you got to like roll back up and put back together. I'm like, God, I would hate my life if I had to do that.
Right.
But so
Yeah,
I
that'd be crazy.
hope that this is the end of the Fast and the Furious franchise. Personally, if they did like a spin-off, I think that'd be okay. Like you said, Hobbs or Kurt Russell's character, but I just don't want to see them milk the franchise any more than they have to. And I feel like this is a great ending. Furious 7. It's probably my favorite, if not maybe. I think it's my favorite in the series, but I think Tokyo Drift is up there pretty well too, personally.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is either my favorite or second favorite. It's the high of still seeing the movie.
Yeah,
And
that's
definitely
what I'm kind of
ending.
worried about. Is like I feel like it might be because I liked it so much and I just
Like,
saw it less
It
than
is
like
really, really good.
yeah,
It's an awesome movie.
yeah.
I'm so glad that they ended on an incredibly high note. So
Yeah, and I'm really
yeah,
glad
this
that
is a
they-
movie that everyone needs to see for sure if you enjoy action movies at all.
And I'm really glad that they took the hard way out with Brian's character, Paul Walker's character, and they didn't just say, "Well, he died, so let's just kill him off real quick," and
Right.
we'll go from there or whatever. But so once again, you guys, episode 14 of Fast and the Furious, we got something kind of special planned for next week. I mentioned a guy a couple minutes ago.
Crossover.
Joe Diesel's Half Hour of Power. We have been communicating with them quite a bit. We did a little bit of a
Right.
crossover back in February whenever we were still on Blog Talk and not Twitch. But next week we're going to be doing a movie / so we've been doing, this was a movie, what was last week? WrestleMania. So it's been a couple weeks since we talked about video games. And, well, there is one video game that made my top 10 list, and that video game has a movie, and that movie has The Rock in it. Tom, you know what I'm
Yes.
talking about?
Yes. Doom.
Doom. Yes, Doom on
Yes.
the PC, Xbox, all that good stuff. So
Yep.
next week will be kind of special. We're going to be working alongside Joe Diesel and his crew with Jesse, talking about the Doom movie over on Blog Talk. And then Saturday, fingers crossed, everything works out well. We're going to have Joe Diesel himself on our show, and hopefully Jesse, I'm not sure what his work schedule is like, to talk about Doom the video game. So this is going to be a great compilation, great working with those guys. Like I said before, he was pretty much like the sole inspiration through his podcast to help us start our own. So once again, Joe, thank you for the movie. Thank you for the tour. Thanks for the inspiration. So make sure you guys come back next week and stay tuned so we can talk about Doom.
See you guys.
See you next week.